What are the? Do you know what the name of these things are? You know these.
Oh, sorry. Hello? Hello, hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Presentation. Do you want us behind the lectern, or how do you? You do whatever you want. I'm going to be here because I've got all my notes here, but you can walk around. You see whatever's happening here. Well, yeah, because from there it might be a bit tough to actually see the. You come here like you've got. Yeah. When I do my presentation, because it's going to be difficult to see so I'm gonna walk around. So I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm not going to sit here and strain and whatever. I'm going to try and get up and have some movement. Yeah. Let's see what the other guys do. ¿No funciona? Sí funciona, pero falla. ¿Sí? ¿Quieres cambiarlo? Vamos a usar el micro de mano con usted, ¿vale? Sí. Sí, porque este está fallando el. We're good to go. There's a little bit of a housekeeping announcement. There are some translation devices floating around. We have to take them if we need them, but we have to return them after. So if you have a translation device, just remember to bring it back to the organizers at the end. Thank you very much. That was the housekeeping announcement. Yeah. Welcome, everyone. This is the last session of the day, so we'll make sure that it's worth your while, for sure. And we look at data, stats, and trends. And as we know, when it comes down to data, everything simple is false. Everything complicated is unusable. So imagine tackling COVID-19, having no idea where this thing spreads, how fast it spreads, what sort of strategies do we have in place, what's the risk of mortality, just navigating in the dark. And that was really the first half of 2020. That was really, really tough times, really. Countries published sort of these intermittent snapshots of where we stood, but it was really the work of volunteers that were tracking a little bit the data, put it together. There's a university in the States, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, that actually created the first the first COVID tracking project. And so data is so essential in everything that we do now. Bringing biodiversity, bringing climate change into the equation. I mean, we need to know how much energy countries consume. We need to know where it comes from. We need to know the demand from different sectors, whether it's aviation, hotels, heating, cooling, and so on. And data and stats really is critical. And this is what we're going to be looking at here. I'll frame this particularly on the SDG 12 on sustainable production and consumption, particularly because out of these 11 targets on SDG 12, there is one specific target, and I will read it, target 12B. And I quote here, develop and implement tools to monitor sustainable development impacts that creates jobs and promotes local culture, and products. That's for the tourism sector. So my name is Willy Legrand. I will be moderating this session, and I have a wonderful lineup of experts with me here today, which I will be presenting in a minute now. So we have Anna, and I want to say this right, Anna Moniche Bermejo. It's okay. Senior tourism data expert at Tourism of Tomorrow Lab, TTL, I guess short. Tourism of Tomorrow Lab at the Andalusia Tourism Board, so local patriot. And this lab looks particularly at solving problems with the use of existing data hand in hand with DMOs. So welcome, Anna. We have also next is Delphine Meyer-King. She's director at The Long Run. And it's a membership organization, many of you will know, nature-based tourism businesses. Collectively, you conserve 23 million acres, correct, of biodiversity, impacting 750,000 people. Welcome, Delphine. So a little bit of statistics as well as I go along here to set the stage. Next, we have Patrick Richards. Welcome, Patrick, director of TerraVerde Sustainability. It's a consultancy supporting the travel sector at every point of their sustainability journey. In fact, I think you call it the sustainability ladder, if I'm correct. Welcome, and thanks for joining, Patrick. And then finally, we have Hartmut Wimmer. He's the CEO, founder of Outdooractive. You've seen the stand, I think, in the hallway as well. One of the, and if not perhaps the world's leading portal, and I read this from your site, hikers, mountaineers, bikers, explorers, families, and then I quote, pretty much all lovers of the outdoors. I like that very much. Searching for the best map, the trails, the activities to do while in the outdoors. So thanks very much, Hartmut, for joining. Welcome, everyone. I hope you had a fruitful day so far. So for the audience here, we'll take this step by step. The discussion will start. We'll start the discussion actually with the presentation, similar to what we've had this morning. Each speaker will be setting the stage for the following discussion. And then I guess we'll be looking at data, stats, and trends front-facing, so to the consumers, as well as rear-facing, that is up our value chain towards the suppliers, for example. So we're looking at the two sides. Slido is available as well in this room, so we'll be looking forward to taking your questions. I have quite a few questions to our speakers as well. Maybe just to get started before Hartmut takes the stage, you probably saw last week, I think the World Economic Forum published a white paper that was called How to Create the Sustainable Travel Product Customer Want. So I thought I was pretty interested by this report. Actually, quite a lengthy report. There's some nice pictures as well in it. Beside a call to travel and tourism companies to develop more prototype of sustainable travel products and test them in the market, the authors, they also call for, and I quote here, the digital travel platform to share data and insights on actual booking behavior, what our tourists are doing at the destinations to allow for comparison of sustainable versus non-sustainable travel products, provide transparency, provide data on the methodology behind emission calculation, something else that we'll be talking about, behind reporting, behind green badges, and certificates. So I thought this was quite interesting. Now, our first presenter will be able to tell us much more on data and on travelers' behavior, because this is Hartmut from Outdooractive. The floor is yours. You've got the clicker. We have the presentation in a second. And you're good to go.
So, thank you, Willy. What a coincidence that we are a data platform. It's a good chance to speak about digitalization, and this is what we are doing. We are around since a while, so our company was founded by me 29 years ago, and we come from actually planning tourism infrastructure. This is what we did the first 10 years. And then we decided 20 years ago to build a digital platform to bring all the data from all the projects, from all the stakeholders into one platform. And the result is, so this is our vision, so we have a digital travel guide of the world, so all the destinations are like a big puzzle in 6 levels. And we build a complete entire ecosystem about that. And finally, we have our consumer brand, and we have many front ends of our destinations and customers that the users are using. So we are the only company in the world, this is a very unique approach, connecting the two sides. So most of the outdoor portals are either websites for marketing purpose of tourism DMOs, or are community, let's say B2C generated content. So the idea of the travel guide is bringing all the contributors, it's like a whole bunch of them, you can see them on the left side, into one system. So we have one database and one content management, and they bring all their product into one system. And then we sort it and cluster it like how the users need it. They need a place to sleep, they need to get there, they need to do something, they need to eat something, and then we distribute the content through all the technology and channels and brands. So we are distributing it through many brands. And we are like the green part, we are like the underlying tourism systems. We call it a tourism operating system. So this is like what we all take care of. And this is very unique, so we are working with all the officials. So I like to call it like the alliance of the officials that is actually bringing their content and their force together and build like the official content database of a destination. So this is what we're doing. And this is the user side, so we are pretty much worldwide. Of course, Europe is like our main hub, and the German-speaking countries are our origin, but we are reaching quite a lot of people. So we are, on the user side, we are amongst the 3 biggest players in the outdoor tourism sector. This is what we do, and to actually build on that, all that is like you need we have a very strong backend that maintains the content, that actually measures the reach, that manages the community and all the reviews and whatever. And then we have a technology to bring the content to the user. It's like websites and apps. And we do have about 2,500 different channels. And the one strongest channel is the Outdooractive app and website together. It's half of the reach of the whole platform is like under our brand, and the other half is all our customers together. And this is like what we are currently doing the most. We take care about visitor management. It's as a part of sustainability, but this is like the most urgent thing. But we are a data and a map company, so everything that happens, we can bring it to the map. Content that is clicked, routes that are planned, routes that are tracked, things that are liked, whatever. So, and this is what we're doing. And like the king solution is to have that in real time. So this is a live heat map in our system. Once this is your region, you can look on the map what's going on out there. And this is on a Saturday, so it starts sitting in the city and planning the day. And then later on at noon, it looks like this. So they are out there, and maybe they are still driving their car to the destination. And the peak is like in the afternoon. So, and then you can zoom in, you see the single trail or the parking lot or whatever, what is really going out there. And once we store all that, we can make predictions for the next Sunday or for the next week or for the next year when the weather is nice and when their holidays are or whatever. And out of that, we do not only have maps, it's like all the insights, it's reporting. We are very strong in the analytics, and we are working very strongly in the artificial intelligence to make predictions. You can look what has happened with your content in your destination and so on. And the most important thing, you can connect with the users, you can create user profiles. What are they doing? What is their favorite activity? Where have they been? What have they asked? What have they liked? And you can answer, you can connect, you build your own community with Outdooractive. We take care about safety a lot, so we want to guide the people, and we give them a good feeling that they are doing the right thing, they get home safe, with weather, snow, hazards, avalanches, and so on. And the trail managers and the destination managers can also close areas and close trails. So you see a red area and a red trail. Those are closed. And with one click, they are closed on 2,500 channels. You can guide people, you give them a good experience. You're not standing in front of some closed areas or trails. And the protected areas is very much in our focus. Like there's a big number of protected areas all over the world. I assume in the end it will be around 500,000 or so. So it's huge. And we can users tell what they are allowed to do or what they are not allowed to do in that area. But for that, we need to have reliable data. And this data does not exist, so we can show the data. All these icons and these rules can be visualized in context, in time, in the right device, in the right language. But we need the data. And we do not have found any authority with the data. And therefore, we have founded an NGO 2.5 years ago. It's called Digitize the Planet. This NGO has actually the mission to digitalize all this data of all protected areas around the world and make it open, not only accessible for or usable for Outdooractive, but for all the outdoor platforms or even for Google and all the big guys. And this is what we are doing with the Digitize the Planet with the NGO. So this is our mission, to digitalize all sorts of data. And this is just one of our sustainability initiatives in which you are in. One is here, so we are a member of GSTC. We are collaborating with Albert and Green Destinations. We are working with the World Trails Network and many others. Also like search and rescue teams. And so we are really trying to bring them all together to contribute to a full service in the destination. And this is like the vision, what we're just starting with Green Destinations, with their system for the certification. There's a data platform, and we want to connect. We want to have that data into the Outdooractive platform imported to give the hotels and the other businesses an indicator how good they are already, and to summarize that all, to have the score also for a whole destination, where they are, what they need to do, and what they should do next. So this is like the digitalizing and the integration of the certification data and processes into our platform. That's it, and you can give it a try. It's a freemium model. You can just start with a free account and look how that all works. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hartmut, for this. We move straight to our next presenter. This is Anna Moniche Bermejo, Senior Tourism Data Expert at Tourism of Tomorrow Lab. Welcome, Anna. We'll get your presentation up on screen. And of course, questions on Slido, please, for Hartmut and the others.
So yes, thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be with this great panel. I'm very interested in what you presented, and in fact, I'm going to present a project that we are doing together. But it was very interesting to see all the synergies that we have all together, and this kind of events, I think, is a very good opportunity to see that. So as Willy has introduced me, I'm Anna Moniche. I work for the regional government of Andalusia. I've been working with tourism statistics since 1997, I think, so a long time ago I started for the regional government of Andalusia. In 2015, Andalusia joined Nextour. Nextour is a network of regions for sustainable and competitive tourism in Europe, which is committed to put tourism at the top of the European policy agenda. And the role of Andalusia has always been trying to obtain and have the data the destination and the region needs to take decision. So because of that, we have been involved in Andalusia and in Nextour. We have been involved in all the processes with the European tourism indicators. It is, I guess, many of you might know it. And we have been working hand by hand with the rest of partner regions, and we have been identifying the needs that the regions have for data, for taking decision based on data. So in all these years, we have an idea of what are the challenges that the regions have for using data for decision making. The first one is we are working with a sector, which is the tourism sector, where digitalization has penetrated very hard. This is good in one way, but then it makes up to face many challenges. Digitalization generates lots of data that we can use for decision making, but then we need to be aware of all the different data that we are getting from the digital movement that our customers and our tourism doing throughout the journey, in the search of a tourist destination, in the booking of a tourism destination, while they move in the destination. We can use all this data, and we have to be aware that they are uncompleted data. Sometimes they are not accurate. They are very useful, but then we need to be very careful how to use in order to take the right decision, because sometimes they are not complete, they are not coherent with other sources, like big data with official sources. So this is something that's a challenge for the regions and for the DMOs and for all the stakeholders in the tourism sector. Then the second big challenge that we face is how to translate all this data that we have into real decision, because we have many different sources of data, many of the destinations that are here. We have lots of big data sources, big databases, but how do we take this, how do we use this data in taking a decision and in monitoring our policies? And then how to take action about sustainability. We have the Sustainable Development Goals, we have the Green Deal in Europe, we have the Tourism Transition Pathways, we have the Global Sustainable Tourism Council framework. So these many frameworks that we have at the destination level, and which one we need to follow and how to do it. So this is why we created a new department in Nextur, which is the Tourism of Tomorrow Lab. Our idea is to have like a common department, common data department for destination, but it's not in a way of a consultancy, how a consultancy does, but working hand in hand with the technician at the destination level. And because we all share the same issues, the same challenges. And in Nextur, we believe in networks, work in a collaborative way, and then we decided to create another line of work, which is the Tourism of Tomorrow Lab. Andalusia is the leading region of Tourism of Tomorrow Lab. It is hosted in Marbella, in Spain, in Malaga. But of course, we work with all the regions in Europe that are interested in working together with us. We are 3 experts, and I think our differentiating factor is that we are not a team that we produce a solution for a destination, but we are like colleagues to the experts that are at the destination level, because we all have the same issues. As I said before, the differentiating factor is that we work together with the destination. We also integrate the public sector in the definition of the Tourism of Tomorrow Lab. We work with Amadeus, and they see us not as competitors, but as some like element of the chain that is necessary in order for the destination to be skilled enough to take decisions based on data. We work with destination. We have at the moment, we started working in January this year. We are already working with 7 premium destinations, and we have already developed some of the projects that I don't have time to go through all of them, but if you want, I can give you details later on. In addition, we work in different lines of action. I'm going to explain you two projects related with, very briefly, two projects related with data. The first one is a special project which is funded by the European Commission, and it is implemented by the OECD. And we want to advance in the work that the ETIS system of indicators at the European level was doing, and to design a final methodology for measuring sustainability at the regional level in order to align with all the sustainable policies that we need to face at the regional level, at the national level, and also at the European level, and at the international level with the Sustainable Development Goals. And the second one, sorry, it is in Spanish, I didn't have time to translate this slide, is the DAYS project. This is the project that we are working with our colleagues of Outdoor Activities. And we are funded by the European Commission to create the European data space for tourism. The European Commission is supporting European data spaces for many of the sectors, and we are working in the European data space for tourism. The goal is to create the rules for the data economy to play, to create a transparent and fair market for data, and to create incentives for all the data players to share the data and to create the rules for data sharing at the destination level. So I think we'll have more time in the questions. If you want more insight on any of the issues I presented, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Anna, from the Tourism for Tomorrow Lab. Next is Delphine Mayere-King, Director, The Long Run. Delphine, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Do you hear me? Does it work?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm Delphine. Oops. Okay. So I wanted to provide a bit of an insight on a little reality check. We've been really excited about the trends and stats that have come out, post-COVID on this aha moment that the travelers, the industry have kind of felt during COVID, and that sustainability is taking the lead in decision and travel. We had this exciting trends plan predicted for 2022, and for this panel, I just thought, well, why not look a bit what's happening in our membership? Because, again, we've seen travelers believe that sustainability is vital. They're ready to spend more to go to impactful, destinations and impactful tourism operations. But then there was also conflicting information during mid-year saying, well, yeah, that's what they say, but they say they're going to offset their flight, but then only 1% do it. And actually they say they're ready to spend, but only 20% do it. So I wanted to ask our members, which is already quite a skewed population of members, because we're talking about here properties that protect biodiversity. They're committed, it's part of their DNA, it's part of their communication, it's conservation, it's social development. So, I just thought, well, if they don't see it, who is going to see it? So we have two types of members. One are properties, and the other ones are what we call travel partners. They're travel agent, travel media, DMCs. So, different perspective from different sides of the chain. So it's not a statistical analysis, it's just a little, food for thought, little cases to illustrate what's been going on. So first, inquiries. So we're talking here about nature-based properties, and we've seen quite a significant inquiries raised in 2022 compared to 2019. Most of the properties have seen, 10 to 30%, and I think that's quite significant, but it's also, we've had the floodgates open since summer, so, let's see if that is sustained. But I must say that a lot of African properties have never had such a high occupancy. So it's exciting, there's recovery. What I've been asking them is, how does sustainability, to what level does sustainability count in people booking with you? So for most of them it counts because, again, it's part of their DNA, but they haven't necessarily seen a change. So, the most important is the location, the view, nature, and this was the case before. They haven't necessarily seen a nuanced difference. In terms of behavior and in terms of, I think one thing that was also said is that more and more multi-generational trips and more power to the young generation opting for sustainable travel. So what we've seen at our meeting, this is something that came out of our meeting in October actually, that quite a few have noticed that families and older people are actually want to travel together. They want to travel together because they can do it. Before kids leave home, before they're not, before older people are unable to be as active. So that's seen, again, food for thought. Let's track if this is a trend, but certainly properties that have opportunities for exclusive booking, so you have a house basically in the bush, have seen that, or that, that can be exclusively booked, have seen a real increase in that. So families booking exclusively for a longer period of time. Longer stays, so that also, we've been pushing, we've been so excited in the sustainable tourism world, thinking, great, they're going to slow travel, they're going to stay longer. So longer stays, again, properties haven't seen necessarily a significant change, a slight change, but most of the ones who have seen a significant change have incentivized that change. So they have proposed packages that, 5-day package. They also, the properties we're representing, they have, it's active, it's outdoor, etc. So they've kind of encouraged that change, and they talk about it from the booking time. So let's see if that kind of spills over. Staycation. So it was international versus domestic travel. Most of the properties, obviously, during COVID, in the destinations that kept open, the countries that kept open for local tourism, saw, obviously a massive increase in domestic tourism. Most of the properties seen international versus domestic come back to the previous proportions. So from, we're comparing 2022 to 2019. But in 3 destinations in Brazil, so the property, our members in Brazil, our members in South Africa, and our members in Australia have really seen a significant increase. So since 2019. So it has stayed in 2022 plus 20%, plus 15%, 20%. So that's quite interesting. And as Patrick told me before, better track this to see if that's maintained. But as our member said in Brazil, in Cayman, people have discovered their backyard and they like it, which is a very exciting trend for us in conservation, because if local people are interested in their biodiversity, it's more likely to be conserved in longer term. So maybe travelers intend to travel more sustainably, but it's a bit complicated to do it. They don't know necessarily how to do it. They don't necessarily know what they're looking for. But once they're in the property, they get hooked on it. They start to discover what is it that they're looking for. So the members, members especially are, this is something that we work a lot on in our network. Touch points during their stays, experiential touch points, reinforcement with staff. Staff is all engaged in the sustainability mission and the conservation mission. Everything has a story behind it. There's one of our members and quite a few members propose menu of activities which are impact activities, so they're really divided. We have a framework, conservation, community, culture, and commerce. They're divided like this, so easy way to communicate. And then transparency and having that conversation around the transparency, so a bit of data. We have an impact statement that a lot of our members provide to their guests that shows how does their stay impact the destination, impact the local economy, how is the money spent when they spend it at that destination. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delphine from the Long Run. And closing in is Patrick from Terra Sustainability, and then we'll go straight into the discussion.
Hello, everybody. I get the hand mic. So I'm Patrick, and I'm worried. Yeah, firstly, because I've got to multitask with all of these things, and but I'm also worried because I think tourism is behind the curve as far as sustainability is concerned, and I think we need to engage specifically more closely with the travel trade to be able to drive it. And why do I say that? Well, this is a straw poll. How engaged is travel and tourism? And when I say travel and tourism, I'm talking quite a lot about the private sector here. The tour operator, not a priority. The trade association, sustainability is still a minority sport. The hotelier, we can't be sustainable. We have too many heritage properties with high energy needs. So a lack of understanding, a lack of appetite. Now, why is this? Survival? We all know that travel, excuse me for the noises. We all know that travel and tourism companies are fighting for survival. Maybe that excuse is I use the word excuse, is diminishing now with the recovery, but also the sheer scope of the industry. And when I say scope, I mean all of the players, I mean the size, all of the subsectors that are going on, 600,000 accommodation properties in Europe alone, 1 million activities and visitor attractions globally, 196,000 intermediaries. And if you take the Statista stats, the size of the ecotourism sector of 181 billion, we'll put that against what they say is the total size of tourism of 5.8 trillion. That's about 3%. Gracias. I'm getting another mic. Okay. So, and this is an interesting stat from Arrival. They say tours and activities is not just a vertical. Shark tours, pub tours, TV tours, kite surfing, it just goes to show the scope of our industry that we have to deal with. And of course, business is expected to be the generator of change. 81% of people asked say that CEOs need to take personal responsibility for showing that their company is being fairer to society. So, how do you engage people who may not be so interested into being interested? And we take the view that self-interest really is a compelling case in meeting your consumers' needs. In 92% of under 30s prefer to work for organizations with green credentials. Well, in an industry that has a recruitment crisis, if we want to persuade people to come and work for our industry, not a bad place to start. And that's before you move into what investors are looking for, et cetera, et cetera. And then that cascades down into trading. All of the 4 sectors, online OTAs, offline tour operators, MICE sectors, now rely on having some kind of carbon information. Now, this could be carbon. It could also be biodiversity. I've chosen carbon. It's an easy one to choose. But more and more, providers are being expected to display this information for commercial needs. I did a straw poll, by the way. I was at IBTM in Barcelona 2 weeks ago, I walked around probably 40 different convention bureaus and hotel chains and said to them very simply, can you measure your carbon footprint of your next event? And the answer I got was 0 from anybody. Some referred me on to their green team, but from the commercial people, and that's another worry I think that we have, is that too often sustainability is being siloed rather than being part of the commercial trading of different bodies. But the commercial people didn't know. So, you know, who's responsible for this? Well, you know, maybe some of this is us. That too much of our data, too much of the data that we give is inaccurate or woolly. And let me give you an example. So, you know, actually, this is the carbon footprint of my flight. This is not my flight, but this is an example going from London to Athens return. Now, you look at what's on Skyscanner, a greener choice. This flight emits 11% less CO2. Well, than what? 50% of something. Now, look at Google, and at least Google portray emissions, 316 kilograms of CO2e. But look at DEFRA stats, 804 kilograms of CO2e for the same flight. Well, you know, no wonder the consumer is confused by the data that we're giving them. Similarly with trains. Google say this is for a Eurostar trip from London to Paris, and we're all trying to convince consumers to get onto trains, 17 kilos of CO2e. On Eurostar's own site, 4 kilograms of CO2. Okay, so, you know, we're hardly giving our consumers and our businesses clear information. Now, there are some good initiatives, and this is a good one that I think is worth talking about. It's something called Train Over Plane. This one looks at a few very distinct routes, and I think Luigi talked about the excellent trains in this country. If you only replaced about 6 routes, domestic, under 2.5 hours, you'd get 2.4 million passengers a year traveling on trains rather than domestic flights. This is also possible to scale, and if you scale this up to across Europe, again following the same criteria, you could save 36 million tons of carbon a year. And here's another example of something that can be really good for the industry, but shows how far we have to go. I did a little search before I came on electric vehicles, and this is electric vehicle charging points available in this city, this lovely city of Seville. Well, 1,560 properties came up. But then when I searched again, using a search criteria of which properties had electric vehicle charging points, only 32 came up. Now, what does that mean? We all want to persuade our customers to drive electric vehicles if they got car hire, right? Well, you know, we need to give them the information to do that. If you rock up at a hotel, the last thing you want to go to sleep and you want to refresh your car, you know, by charging it. If you can't do that and you have to drive around the town looking for an electric charging point, not good. So, you know, firstly, let's look at the good point of this. Booking.com have the facility. It's available on their search. I think the two negative sides is I looked at another few well-known hotel sites to search, and you can't search by electric charging point. So we're not giving consumers the service. And unfortunately, as I say, only 32 out of the 1,560 accommodation choices in Seville were able to provide our customers with this service. So a long way to go. Here's another one. I just talked a lot about carbon. Here's a little bit on biodiversity. I think these kind of maps are really excellent for being able to portray you know, the darker spaces are really the only places that were within the planetary boundaries for biodiversity. And here's a zoom in on this region, but also my own region where I was born and grew up in Cornwall in the UK, and also Kenya. So, you know, we can see some real, both global data, but also granular data here too. And these are the kind of stats I think we need to be showing to everybody. So what are we? We're behind the curve. The long tail needs to be addressed. We need one language. Business needs to be engaged. And we need coherent and accurate data. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you very much. So we're right on time. We have 45 minutes in front of us to take this apart. There is so much, and the questions are great. So to my participants, we'll try to combine a little bit of everything. The questions will come on board a little bit later, but right away I will come. If I can, yeah, very good. We've got the mic back. Hartmut, let's start. There are lots of questions directed at you, but I'll start with one, and we'll start with the basics. What sort of increase in traffic have you seen on your platform post-COVID as people, do you see a rush in people going back to nature-based destinations after months of lockdowns? Do you see this? That's the one question. And then linked to this, it's the heat map, and there's a question that's here. How do you determine what visitor volume level is acceptable for each places? So here we go. So first one, rush, yes or no. Second, heat map.
First,
how do we determine?
First one is easier. So rush, yes, there was a big rush, big peak, and it was all local. They all discovered their own home area, and it's not going away anymore. So the outdoor activities are staying a trend. And the second one, the definition of how many are still good. We are still in discussions, but there are some projects. So we are in many funding projects and in many research projects, and we measure people in the field with a digital GPS position, with hardware trackers, and then we go out with rangers and ask the people, was that many, too many, or was it okay? And therefore we will find the right balance.
It's always a matter of this idea of carrying capacity. There's this great talk a few years back about comparing this to a dinner with your friends. Do you want to have a banquet style where everybody is there holding their little paper plates in your room, or do you want everybody to sit down at a table? Carrying capacity is then, right, depending on what we do at a destination. Just picking up on this, but going to Delphine, because you've mentioned all these wonderful destinations and nature-based travel that you said. So looking for this nature pleasures, we could say, it's high on the agenda. Hartmut just said so as well. The global ecotourism market, I think it's set to grow to, I don't quite have the numbers, but a lot for sure, in the billions for sure. Do you see a potential challenge here in that carrying capacity of what I've just said now, standing all like sardines at the destinations? So this idea of moving ecotourism to some kind of mass ecotourism. I know you're not going to like me saying mass anywhere around here, I'm sure. Is the increase then that you see on nature-based tourism an opportunity, and if so, how is it an opportunity?
Yes, I see it as an opportunity, but an opportunity to handle with care. So I think that people connecting to nature is essential. If we want to tackle that climate and biodiversity crisis, people have to understand what they have under their feet. They need to reconnect, and if they connect, they're going to care and they're going to understand. On the other hand, when we open access, when we encourage access to nature, then of course we have to manage. So there's carrying capacity, and I don't think we can only talk about environmental carrying capacity. There's also social and cultural carrying capacity. And for me, I think it's not about the what, it's going to be how it's managed. I think we need time. It needs to be, time needs to be taken. It needs to be a collaborative process. If destinations open, more areas for nature tourism, then there needs to be consultation, and there needs to be understanding of what that means. And it was a great example of Tahiti and also NIT talking about this. And I think talking with the stakeholders, what is it that they want to see? How do they want the landscape to be? How do they want to feel in their own area? And then, so I just think an opportunity, great opportunity, but handle with care.
Okay, great opportunity, handle with care. Let's keep that in mind. I think that's going to be the closing statement. Patrick, I turn to you. You've had actually some great slides with some data here. We've just seen out of 27. I'm talking to myself. I can hear that. I'm having a great conversation. We've seen out of COP27 a little bit of a downside. On the plus side, nature-based solutions actually has been recognized as being a key component to climate mitigation, adaptation. If we take this, so if we take the Glasgow Declaration, 750 signatories we heard this morning, it's good to see. But how do we turn that commitment, right? This is basically what you're saying, being behind the curve. How do you take that commitment into action, knowing, and as mentioned this morning again, that we have 8 years to cut by half our emissions? From your experience, do the companies actually, beyond the commitment, have a clear pathway layout to achieve such commitment?
It was a great question, firstly, Willy. Yes, Glasgow does give a pathway. Whether all the companies can adhere to it or not is another matter. Let's first give a bit of perspective here. 750 signatories is great. And I think Glasgow, we're fans of Glasgow, the Glasgow Declaration, because it gives an easy entry point into getting onto the sustainability journey or the sustainability ladder. But it's 750. On my slideshow, 196,000 intermediaries. So we're pretty much at the beginning of this journey. And of course, you know, although Glasgow helps companies into the top of the funnel to make a start, of course you need to move down the funnel and then become more resilient. Now, how will they do that? I think that's another matter. I think you've got some great trailblazers. I was really impressed with the Travel Corporation's science-based announcement this week. You've got some other fantastic examples of the same. Excuse me. For example, Siemens will now only use certified hotels. So anyone who's servicing any corporate travel from Siemens globally will need to make sure that they have a green certification. And that's fantastic for spreading things. Unfortunately, I do know a lot of companies who've signed up for Glasgow who are struggling with the next phase. And I think it'll be really incumbent on us, you know, one, to get more people into the funnel, but two, to really help those companies that are already in the funnel and have already signed up for Glasgow to you know, as we say, to deliver the one-year plan. And then once they deliver the one-year plan, deliver the second-year plan, where they say, hey, we were on 10% in year one, we're on 15% in year two, we're on 20% in year three, or whatever their measure is. So there's a big challenge ahead.
I mean, we do have 2.5 million tourism businesses alone in the EU. 99% of them are SMEs. And the signatories, are most of the signatories SMEs? I would imagine, so I'm not 100% sure. Do you think that's the challenge, to get in the other 2.4, etc. million businesses on board on any of this? Is that one of the greatest challenges ahead?
I think I agree with what Randy said this morning. You have to start with some of the big companies. Yeah. And, you know, without disclosing too much, I think, you know, of those 100 main booking sites, you want to hold all of those 100 main booking sites to account, be they a product or be they an OTA or whatever they might be, that they are actually, you know, on this journey with us towards a greener future for tourism. From then on, you want to be able that the SMEs can fall into line, and it should be quite a democratic process. Mm-hmm. And if you can present things like carbon measurement tools that aren't too expensive, that help those SMEs follow the big companies in short order, then I think we've probably got a magic combination.
We'll come back to the corporate pool as well, which you just mentioned, the corporate traveler. I know there's a few questions in the audience, so I'm not ignoring them. I have them right here, and we're going to go over them. So don't desperate in the audience. We still have plenty of time in front of us. Anna, turning to you now. So pretend I do all this, right? I've signed the Glasgow Declaration, I'm happy, and I know about the SDGs, sounds like it's a good deal. In which way are you supporting this practically? So can you walk us through sort of an initiative that you had at the Tourism for Tomorrow Lab, where, you know, you tackle specific sustainability challenge or data, and how did that work with the DMO? Can you walk us through an example?
Yes, actually the project I just present very shortly, which is the technical support instrument, which is funded by the European Commission, is exactly that, what we pretend to do, because we work in a specific project with a different destination, but we are aware that we need a common methodology to support the regions in order to be aligned with the European policies or international policies, the Glasgow Declaration, and their own planning policy at the regional level. So we are aware that the tourism statistical governance is not well prepared for measuring the sustainability of tourism, at least at the regional level and also at the destination level. So our work has always been to trying to push the European Commission and the National Statistical Institutes at the European level to prepare the necessary statistical framework for the destination to measure tourism sustainability. Because if I guess some of you might know, the governance of tourism at the European level, it's a bit complex, let's say, because tourism, it has policies, is the powers of tourism policy is usually at the regional level or at destination level, but then the European institutions are managed by the national level. So this does not give the regions enough tools to measure tourism and tourism sustainability. So this is something that we are aware, something that we want to address at the Tourism of Tomorrow Lab, and we are working with a European funded project. Of course, this means that have like the name of Europe in the result of this project, and it's implemented by OECD. We are working for regions of Spain, which is Andalusia, Valencia, Catalonia, and Navarra. And we are defining a methodology for measuring sustainable tourism, taking into account all these policies that you have mentioned, the Glasgow Declaration, the Green Deal, and all the aspects that we need to work in our policies. And then we will also not work on the methodology, but we will be implementing pilots in all the regions, so we make sure that all this methodology that sometimes is very complicated can be actually implemented at the regional level for measuring all the sustainability of the tourism.
Thank you so much. Moving on, thank you very much. Moving on to Hartmut, lots of questions for you, so I'm combining a little bit here. Looking at the granularity of data that you've presented, those heat map, I think a lot of people are quite impressed with this, with the popularity index, you could say, of specific destinations. A couple of questions. So and this is from Paul, would adding carbon footprint intensity based on where people came from, how they approximately travel, what they do to those beautiful heat map, would that be useful? That's the first part. And then the second part is about the sociocultural. So are there any good examples of tracking and using data around sociocultural sustainability impacts and benefits? From Ayako. So 2 questions.
In short, that's actually all our goal. So it's a long way to go.
Sure.
So, and it's not an easy one, but this is exactly the goal, and this is what we are working on. Knowing the people first, creating user profiles, and of course we then know where they live, and we then know where they are and where they are traveling. We also know where they are dreaming of, because they click on something. So a journey starts actually long before they leave their home. They're sitting in front of their computer weeks, months, years ahead, put something on their bucket list. And this is all data that we can utilize.
Okay, very good. Along the same line, Patrick, I turn to you. We've been talking about that data for measurement analysis, benchmarking. You've showed some interesting data from your own trip just now. Reliable carbon calculator, waste management or waste calculator or water calculator, where do we stand on this? I mean, how about benchmarking that data? What's the work to be done? And how do you explain that we have such discrepancies here, as you've shown?
Well, there's a lot of carbon calculators out there, and they range from free to 6 figures. So, you know, whatever your budget, there's something there for you. Whether the data within those carbon calculators is always accurate or not, that's another matter, and that's something that we need to hold all the providers their feet to the fire to be able to upgrade the quality of that data all the time. I do think that there's sometimes an onus that all of those calculators should be free. Well, if we expect the quality to improve, that won't improve without investment in those tools. So I think, the industry also needs to understand, and the bigger players will be able to pay more, but the smaller players less. But there needs to be a tool for all different budgets. And the other thing I would say is, that this is a developing piece. If you look at any of the technology, the booking technology, people don't only have one tool. They have a suite of tools to feed different needs. And I think we've just seen over the last, my colleague over here said this morning, what you presented was really interesting, but it was really quite a different area that technology was fulfilling. And the more we get into this, there'll be different needs for technology. It's not just one standard vanilla carbon measurement tool. There'll be all sorts of different areas that the technology and the tools need to be able to measure to be able to fulfill the needs. And I think that's a developing piece. We're at the beginning of a long road there, Willy.
I think I've done a research, actually, it's about 8 years ago, on carbon calculators for hotels specifically. And the output, we had, I think, 3 or 4 free of charge calculators. We had then a consultant going into a hotel to do an audit. And in fact, the results were pretty much all over the place. But there's been massive improvement, at least on the hotel front. If I look, I use those in class, actually. We have a full case studies with the students. And there's a couple calculators that we keep using, and the output is very similar. And I think it's simply because we're looking at scope 1, 2 emissions of a hotel, and that's pretty much straightforward. There's really no rocket science, if you will, in terms of that. But if I turn to you, Delphine, I mean, you have, at the long run, also designed a very quite lengthy and the big carbon and energy performance calculator for your members, plenty of data entry possibilities. Is the tool then being used? Because it's one thing to have the tool, it's another thing to have the tool being used, even if it's free. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we've designed several iterations of the tool. It's a brilliant tool. It's adapted perfectly to our properties, what they face. So it's lengthy just because of all the energy sources that they can use. And yes, no, they didn't use it. We've tried different, we're at version 3, and we got data in 2000, before COVID, which helped us actually identify where weaknesses were, and it enabled us to actually develop a course, a training. But tracking is a real issue, which is, as we were discussing this, we were also in discussion with an organization that was planning and listening about the gap in the opportunity for, an user-friendly way for tourism business to track their resource, energy, water needs. And we actually decided to stop producing tools and to actually support Wimmer develop their platform, which we see a solution for us. So it will be a data solution platform to track impact, carbon footprint, but also, it's been launched and it's with 18 parameters which correspond to some of our 4 Cs. So conservation, community, culture. So it's a 360 degrees view of your business, but it's appealing, it's user-friendly, and for us, we feel that that's going to be the solution, and we are going to make it actually compulsory for our members to onboard Wimmer so we can get the data, communicate, and see and track, and help them track to inform their decisions. I'm just pointing at the Wimmer queen here, Lindsay.
That's right. Question. I want to go to those questions here, but just before, for the record, Hartmut, is your platform in sync with digital watches, etc., for location data purposes?
Yes.
Yes, that's the answer. And then next question. We don't need to go on. I mean, that's clear. Privacy concern with this collecting such a robust data. What are some of the potential issue here regarding security? So not only privacy, but security concerns.
Yeah, that's a very sensitive point and needs to really taken care of to not having actually personalized data on any front ends, on any APIs that can be followed back. It's a sensitive point, but it is doable.
It's doable, okay. I'm turning to Anna. Anna, on your website, it's mentioned that you do recommendation for common methodology for sustainability monitoring systems with KPIs at destination level. Can you share where you stand on those KPIs? What are we looking at?
Well, this is, I mean, we are not inventing the wheel, of course. I mean, there are some aspects that need to be measured for measuring sustainability. We have the 3 dimensions of sustainability, which are economic, social, and environmental. And then our ambition is to build a system of core indicators and other specific indicators for measuring sustainability. Of course, we need to measure basic aspects like the use of resources like water, energy, waste, and these kind of issues are for sure need to be integrated. We also integrated properly the social dimension of tourism, which is something is not so well developed at the moment, and we need to be careful to integrate all the social challenges that tourism is provoking in our destination. Of course, the resident attitudes will be also part of the measuring. In terms of the economic sector, the economic dimension, we want to advance from the traditional measurement metric of number of tourists. Of course, we want to integrate its impact on the employment, on the quality of the employment, on the local economy, not just a direct measurement of the income that is created, the expenditure of the tourists, but the income really generated at the regional level. So our intention is just to integrate all this basic data, and of course all the dimensions that the criteria of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council already have worked, but to make it in such a way that we can do it with the data that we already have, and also to identify those aspects where we need to advance because we don't have the necessary data. So nothing really new, because we all know how we should measure sustainability, but we don't have like a common framework for all of us to benchmark with the rest of the destination and with ourselves, seeing the evolution of how the sustainability has been evolved along the years.
Sorry, ultimately you want that data to be able to make decisions. There's a question I'd like to ask you that, Patrick, picking up from Anna just now. The question is, what do you suggest to move from data to more sustainable decision making? It seems to be a gap between data and sustainable policy making. I know we've talked in the past about carrot and sticks, Patrick, to advance sustainability. Maybe you want to say a few words about that and this question right here about moving from data to decision-making and the gaps.
Well, first of all, you know, I slightly beat up on Google, and I apologize to Google for many, many reasons. You know, you want to keep Google on side in your life. But, you know, at least they've been transparent. And even though some of the data, I think, in their system, on their search is questionable, you know, they made the plunge that they started to publish carbon emissions for key, you know, for key data points. And, you know, the news that travelists now are looking at aviation to be able to harmonize that, great, you know. So hopefully you'll have some standardization that travelists are able to achieve in aviation, and couple that with the transparency that Google have given. That seems to be a good combination. Now, then you go to the hotel sphere, a shout out to another company that I think is doing some really good work here, which is HRS from Germany. And they have to do it because their corporate customers all over the world are demanding that. They're all, those big corporate customers like Siemens are all on net zero journeys. They have to be able to provide them with that data. So, you've got good examples of people who are, making data available, making it transparent, putting it out in the public arena. Then hopefully other organizations like Travelist who are standardizing. Then you come to the carrot and stick. Look, it's a great question. I think the private sector companies respond very well to the threat of regulation. And hopefully, if there's a threat of regulation, the private sector will be moving just ahead of that and will self-govern. And hopefully some of those examples that I've given are a portrayal of that. I think the difficulty a lot of people face is a little bit like Glasgow, but also a lot of other schemes is, once you get people in, you want to get people in, you don't want to lose them for the critical mass of the scheme. But are those companies really progressing with any validity? And I think that's where it comes down to, as well as the carrot, potentially the stick. Is somebody prepared to say, I'm sorry, I can't credit you any longer. You haven't moved forward. You got to stage 1, you didn't get to stage 2 or tier 3 or whatever it might be. So I think there's going to be some interesting conversations, and the big players who will dictate a lot of this are going to have to be quite diplomatic with their supply chain and give them the chance. But ultimately, yes, there has to be some kind of sanction.
Okay, there's got to be some kind of sanctions. Let's keep that in mind. The corporate traveler you've mentioned as a potential pull. We've seen corporate travelers' demands for emission data for their own reporting, of course, and so therefore that's a pull for the hotels to do their job. I want to pick this up for you, Hartmut. You can see a few questions. I hope this is okay for you. Do you have any corporations as clients? Would your tool be useful to business travelers? And we can pick up straight on the next one as well about collaborating with the lawmakers, the government, and so on. So where do we stand on this?
Yes, we do have businesses as clients. So all the different sorts of businesses that are a part of the outdoor tourism or in tourism in general experience, we want to have their data and their services in our platform to have an entire holistic experience, and therefore we want to have them all in accounts working with us, and this is the goal. It's coming actually from top down. We usually start with the destination, and then they bring their businesses into our database, and then we start working with them. So it's a rather a top-down approach what we have. The other one was like, how do we collaborate with tourism departments? Yeah, they need an account, put their data in, and we are processing it and bring the data to the user, and they can also use the front ends under their brand, and just use our technology for their websites and apps. So this is how it goes.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for this explanation. Anna, there's also a couple questions here directed at you. Do you want to take a go? Gina is asking, with the plethora of data available, which data do you consider as being most relevant, useful to inform National Tourism Organization for sustainable management of a destination? And the next one as well, does the data apply tools to adapt to specific conditions of the geography and context, for example, regarding rural tourism? So 2 questions here, please.
Yes, really good questions. Actually, just to answer Gina, well, the most relevant, useful to inform sustainable management for a destination is, of course, actual information on demand and supply for tourism. But then what tourism have is a specific complication because it's a very transversal activity, cross-cutting activity. It's not just a sector isolated from the rest because the environmental assets and the cultural and social assets are tourism assets themselves. So we need to measure them in order to integrate it in the measurement in order to measure the tourism sector. But then, in addition, if we want to measure sustainability, we need to integrate other sectors inevitably. Sectors like, as I said before, water, energy, waste, and also the use of natural resources of protected sites. I think these are aspects that we need to integrate in the measurement. And this poses another challenge for measuring and for managing sustainable tourism, because we are obliged to collaborate with other sectors and with other destinations, because we need to work together. Tourism cannot work isolated from the rest of the sector, not for its proper development, but nor for the measurement of the sustainability and of the tourism itself, actually. So most relevant, useful, I think, is tourism information itself, but then, of course, all related with the use of resources. I think this is necessary data to integrate. And then the adaptation to specific conditions and contexts, for example, regarding rural tourism, I can share with you. It's not an example on specifically rural tourism, but it's an example on protected sites that we work with one of our partners, which is Navarra. We applied, I think this is also very important to take into account, that is not, the solution is not to have 1,000 of databases and multiple data, but to use smartly, maybe a small database to take decision. And this is what we did at a protected site in Navarra, which is Nacedero de Urrederra, where we've used the data for the website used for the parking, for booking the parking slots in order to visit this protected site, which has a limited number of people that could visit it at the same time. And then we use this very specific source of information, and it provides very useful insight, because we could use this data for a specific decision making, which was, for example, to use different pricing schemes for the different hours of the day, if we want to reduce the peaks of the visitors in a specific place at a specific time. So my vision is, as Gina said before, there's a plethora of data, but that's not the solution. The solution is to use it smartly, and we are more happy using very small, scalable projects that could give some insight for a specific decision making, because it's not useful to have a very big system of indicators if you don't use it for decision making.
Exactly, yes, and that was what we said earlier. And picking up on this, I thought this was quite interesting with the protected sites and the revenue management regarding parking. Can we pick up Delphine, because that is going along the similar lines in terms of geography. How do you measure the environmental, social, and cultural capacity, but also perhaps you can say a few words about the 4 Cs, because that's the base of your actual measurement, if I understand this correctly.
So the way in which we conceptualize sustainability in the long run is through this 4 lens of conservation, community, culture, and commerce, with the idea of everything needing to be in balance for the biodiversity to be protected in the long run, in the long term. So we have indicators, for each of these aspects. We have a standards which is developed around this, around the framework. And the framework, if you will, is for when we talk about conservation, we talk about environmental management. So I practice water energy waste, and so minimizing our negative footprint, environmental footprint, and then looking at opportunities for positive impact on biodiversity. So there is a bit more tricky to measure. We're looking at the actions, looking at implementation of conservation plans, and one thing that we're struggling with is looking at are we going to soon have a smart indicator to show biodiversity change? Because as you know, biodiversity and climate work together. We talk a lot about CO2 as if CO2 is going to save the planet. Reducing CO2 is going to save the planet, but we know that climate resilience and biodiversity resilience work together. So how are we going to find a smart indicator that everybody's going to hook on to communicate change in biodiversity? So we have members who've piloted some really in-depth kind of way of measuring biodiversity change. There's Tahi in New Zealand, if you want to look at it, like an Ecosphere Importance Index, which looks at water, soil, carbon, vegetation type. They designed the system based on a restoration project, but then as a first step towards moving our members towards that kind of system, which requires a lot of research. We're working with Map of Life and Half Earth Project Map, which has a proxy index called Species Protection Index, which looks at endangered species protected in an area and the gap in species. Anyway, it's a bit, I won't go into detail, but there are some things, that are being worked on, which is quite exciting. In terms of social, I won't go through because I think that's what we wanted to talk about, biodiversity. But other way, that we measure the community impact and cultural impact as, more traditional kind of indicators, looking at, performance in terms of the working environment. So every C, we look at it, from an internal perspective and from an external perspective. So how effective are you at bringing and engaging and empowering communities around you, whether it's the business community, whether it's your local neighbors, how do you bring everyone in the destination to enable a sustainable economy to develop around tourism?
That brings me to that's the perfect bridge. We're going to go to the question in a minute again. But Patrick, just listening now to what Delphine was saying on biodiversity and the socio-cultural, that takes me to this thing called regenerative travel. We've had years to take in consideration the variables to measure sustainability, 25 years. How do we proceed with regeneration before the terms gets hijacked by some corporate high-level diluting the meaning and the consequences? What needs to happen with the concept of regenerative travel?
I think are we working? Okay, cool. I think you're right, Willy. We don't want to devalue that term regenerative travel. Is any travel company the Patagonia of tourism right now? I don't think they are. I think it's a little bit like comparing, I don't know, my daughter's 6th grade exam with a PhD. I think we're a long way away from that, and in not devaluing that and keeping the integrity of the regenerative term, we want to recognize that most travel and tourism is a long way away from that, and really we need to get to first base, which is sustainability, and not taking from the planet before we can really move to giving back to the planet. Having said that, there are trailblazers out there. Many of the companies that Delphine has talked about are doing some fantastic work. And what we've heard from my colleagues over here on some of the really interesting technology that's coming out, that's going to enable us to raise the bar. But I think we're a long way away from it at the moment.
Okay, Delphine, I'd like to have your take on that one. And you come from conservation, and so this idea of protection and restoration, I would imagine. So what's your take on regeneration or regenerative travel in this case?
So regeneration, I see it, care, stewardship, restoration. For me, we've had this debate, conservation, restoration. I see regeneration a kind of an evolution, from sustainability. I see it as part of sustainability. I feel that we're talking about no harm is not enough. We know it. Now, we've taken 35 years to kind of roughly define what sustainability means. And I think we all have slightly different, definitions. So for me, it's about going beyond, it's not no harm at this stage. Sustainability has evolved because we were talking about, leaving the place at least the way it was, and perhaps better than we had it. Now it definitely needs to be left better than we had it. So it needs regeneration. So we need to step up into what's our baseline here. We need to restore and care and shift from this extractive to this nurturing, this investing in our natural capital, our social asset. I think for me it's really strongly important that we don't dissociate. When I talk about conservation, and I hope that when we're talking about environment here, we don't dissociate environment from people. We're all part of the same system. And I think when we talk about regeneration, whether it's conservation, regeneration, sustainability, we're talking about, a holistic perspective, from a holistic perspective.
Mm-hmm. And picking up on this, Hartmut, it's not on the list, I think, here, but it's on my phone. And so I'm going to take it because I think it links quite well to what we've just heard now in terms of conservation, protection, etc. There's a question that says, how does the platform identify and address when there are compatibility issues of activities in protected areas? I'm just thinking of somebody starting a trail where they're not supposed to start a trail, and suddenly you've got hundreds of people taking that trail which actually does not exist and things like that. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a technical approach. So if you enable saving and publishing a trail which is not allowed, then it does not appear. Or you can delete existing content once you come later with the rules. And this is what we are doing. And also for the route planner, when you go through a protected area in which cycling is not allowed or skiing is not allowed, there is no possibility to plan that route. So it's a pure technical process, but you need to have real, reliable data for that.
That's right. Okay, thank you very much. I'm quite conscious of the time. I'm just checking here on the list. I have quite a few. Maybe one more, Hartmut, just now before I go to the last round of questions. How can your platform and the cooperation with Green Destinations influence visitor behavior to choose more sustainable tourism product? Well, it's a little bit what you've just answered now. Anything else you want to add to this? From Nicolas.
I think there is two sides. So the one side is actually the certification process, where people have to enter a lot of data in forms and lists, and the auditor reviews that. So we can help a lot on that, because many of the answers will be, we are working with Outdooractive and we know the visitor streams and we know about nature protection. So we are actually delivering many answers, and we can do this automating filling out those lists. And that actually is more precise, more sustainable, more in time, and data-driven. And the other side is when we bring all that information to a hotel, a POI, or another product, then you do not only have the information sustainable yes or no, which is currently the case. You do have the information whether there is a charging station for an electrical vehicle, or they do have local food, or they do serve vegetarian food, and I see the menu, and so on. So this is a lot more real data and better information that I actually expect as a user, and not just yes or no.
Yep. Very good, thank you. Anna, we're tight on time. one wish, if you had one wish to make tourism more sustainable, what would it be?
Well, I think I would choose more sophistication in the measurement to evolve from the traditional way of measuring, which is number of tourism, to integrate it more information about other aspects of sustainability.
Transparency of data, okay. Patrick, one wish for 2023 on sustainability in travel?
Well, I'm tempted to mention destinations, but I think there's a lot of talk about destinations, so I'm going to talk about the trade. I'd like to see the 100 top booking sites both be held to account for their own sustainability and for the sustainability of the products that they sell. And if I may get another one in, I'd like Travelist to be able to make some progress on harmonizing aviation data.
Okay, thank you. Delphine, one wish or two? Or three?
I think for me is devolving, empowering, and putting effort in educating more travelers, but making information and transparent and genuine information accessible to travelers to make decisions, to inform them of what they want when they're talking about sustainability.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Hartmut. One wish, and also, where does your GSTC fit in all of this? As a concluding question, and an opening for your drink after, I think. Go ahead.
So, since my mission is digitalization, because I strongly believe that we have the biggest impact and the biggest lever and can make the whole process a lot more sustainable, I would wish that the people shift their effort from talking and defining goals and writing proposals and things into digitalization. Just start. It does not cost a lot of money. It just needs commitment, and this is also what I would wish from the GSTC, like creating a data standard that we can exchange with all the software systems that are in place. And I think this will be the biggest lever that we can create together.
Okay, very good. So keep that discussion going, please, after. Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause to this outstanding panel. Don't go yet. Thank you very much. Yeah, destination development. Handle with care. I think that's what you said, handle with care. I have an announcement, don't go. I have to read this. Thank you so much for attending today. I think I could have said that without reading this. The first day of the conference has come to an end. Tomorrow, please arrive between 8 and 9 as the first session starts at 9 a.m. sharp. In the evening, there will be a bus transfer departing from Melilla, Sevilla, and Melilla, Libreros at 18:15, 6:15. Please be ready outside the hotel at 6:15. You can also arrive by yourself. We will be arriving at the Lion Gate of the Real Alcazar. Please arrive before 7 p.m. Did you write all of this down? Please arrive before 7 a.m. My students would say, can you please repeat this, Professor? 7 p.m. at the gates. We will do the tour. It begins and will open again when the tour finishes around 19:45. Come to see me if you have questions, okay? Thanks very much, everyone.